Good morning, students. So today we are here to discuss on the topic natural selection and its types. This topic comes under the syllabus of semester 6 core course 14, evolutionary biology of zoology. Now evolution is a process which is guided by selection by the nature, and it chooses from the genetic diversity of a population those traits that would make an individual more likely to survive and reproduce. Basically, it's a way of bringing together the diverse aspects of the living system. Now, all of us know that variation is a very important part of change in biological sciences. The environment changes acts on variations within populations. Now, only those individuals with best variations. Now, what do I mean by best variations? They are the best genes that are going to be promoted. So, those individuals with best variations for the new environment will survive and will pass on their genes over many coming generations. So, more and more members of the population will be having these genes or characters. Now, these very characters that are being carried from generation to generation, rather I should say the beneficial characters that help them survive in the nature, which is also referred as favorable variations, are nothing but what you call adaptation. Charles Darwin, the great naturalist, was the first to observe the change in terms of evolution. Darwin's theory was based on the mechanism of natural selection. Now, what is this natural selection? Natural selection basically explains how populations can evolve in a way that they become better suited to their environments over time. Now, individuals have variations within their heritable traits. These variations make individuals better suited to survive and reproduce in their environment. And this gets continued over generation, leading to favorable adaptation. Hence, natural selection is a process that results in adaptation. Now, adaptation of what? The adaptation of an organism to its environment by means of selectively reproducing changes in its genotype, or the genetic constituent of the living system. This may arise from differences in survival, in fertility, in rate of development of organisms, in mating success, or in any other aspect of the life cycle. All such differences result into natural selection to that extent that they affect the number of progeny an organism may leave. Every population has its own gene frequency. Gene frequency is the number of times a particular gene comes each time in a population. Now, factors that disturb the natural equilibrium of gene frequencies include mutation, genetic drift, isolation mechanism, migration, as well as natural selection. Now, a mutation is a spontaneous change in the gene frequency that takes place in a population and occurs at a very low rate. Migration is a local change in gene frequency when an individual moves from one population to another, and then it will interbreed. Random genetic drift is a change that takes place from one generation to another by a process of pure chance. So, mutation, migration, and genetic drift alter gene frequencies without regard to whether such changes increase or decrease the likelihood of an organism surviving and reproducing in its environment. That is why they are all referred as random processes. But natural selection moderates the disorganizing effects of these processes. Now, why is it so? Natural process multiplies the incidence of beneficial mutations over the generations and eliminates harmful ones. So what are you getting? So whatever progenies you are going to get, they will be having much more of beneficial mutations that are going to give good characters and will be eliminating the harmful ones. So these very characters, which are beneficial characters, will be carried on by the carriers, and so will be living few or no descendants of the harmful variations. That's why natural selection moderates the effects of the process of mutation, genetic drift, migration, isolation, and leads to a certain kind of stability in the environment. Darwin's concept of natural selection was based on several key observations. So we can rather say that there are certain conditions needed for natural selection according to Darwin. The first of them is genetic variation. Now variation are the changes in the genetic constituent of one individual to another. In a population there must be genetic variability, and this variation is majorly due to the phenomenon of mutation. In living organisms, many characteristics are inherited or passed from parent to offspring, but the changes can occur for mutation that is taking place in the cells. Next is overproduction. Now, number of organisms is always more than the number of survivors. There are many smaller organisms, and most of the times you observe that smaller the organism, more is the number of eggs that it lays. Now why is it so? Because even if certain of its eggs perish, there will be a decent number of organisms who will be surviving in the environment. So overproduction is a very important condition that is required for natural selection, so that there should be good number of organisms that are surviving in a population. The third condition is the differential reproduction. Certain traits enable certain organisms to survive more and have more number of offspring. Now the organism that has well adapted and has a good differential reproduction rate will be surviving in a more successful manner. These very points account for survival of the fittest. The fittest here doesn't mean the strongest or some organism that is very dominant. Survival of the fittest means that organism who has properly adapted to the heat and stress of the environment. So that was all for this topic. In my next video, I shall be dealing with the statistical concept of natural selection, where we will be looking after the various forms of selection which actually lead to natural selection. Thank you, students.